Election season always has people in their feelings, but 2024 took it to a whole new level with friends and family having to cancel each other's votes. You know the vibe. You love your family, but then you hit the polls and suddenly you're practically voting against them. Social media was packed with people venting about casting votes that directly canceled out their loved ones. It's like a whole new twist on family drama. One person's cheering, the other's fuming, and now Thanksgiving dinner is going to need a referee. People are out here voting with their hearts, but it's creating some serious tension.
I've been seeing the trend of the women that are like, going to cancel out my husband's vote by voting blue for Kamala Harris. Like, I mean, I feel you, but also, if that man's voting for Trump, he is actively voting against you and your rights. Let's make that clear. God forbid you got daughters, nieces, sisters, any other women in your family. He's voting against all of y'all. This ain't just differing on tax policy or, immigration reform, prison reform, infrastructure. These are moral differences. J.D. Vance said the man's vote for the family should be enough, as in the women shouldn't get to vote. Those are your rights. The right to choose, abortion bans, like, this is your health care. He's actively voting against you. Let's make that clear. Maybe leave them. Well, I'm not advocating for divorce. Long as you're happy.
For the women making videos like, on my way to go cancel out my husband's vote, I would die to be a fly on the wall in your household. Like, how do conversations with your husband go? What do you guys talk about? Like, if you heard a story about another woman who dies because she's unable to access reproductive health care and you want to talk to your husband about it, how does he respond? Like, is he just like, oh, too bad, so sad, I care more about Republican policies than I do women dying, so I'm still going to vote red? Or is he like, oh, well, she should have kept her legs closed? Like, what would he say? Have you ever tried asking him what he would do if you were the woman in the parking lot bleeding out because you were unable to access reproductive health care? Have you ever asked him how he would feel if you were in that situation, especially knowing that he voted for politicians that caused you to die a very painful but very preventable death? Like, how would he respond to that? For me personally, a complete lack of empathy is a total deal breaker for me. Like, you choose your husband. You know it doesn't have to be this way, right?
Oh my God, going to go vote to cancel out my boyfriend's vote. Why? Why? Like, why are you with him? Because he obviously doesn't care enough about you to vote in your best interest. Don't bring politics into the relationship. It isn't necessary. I would agree with that, except that the politics affect all women, AFAB, and femme people within the United States. Every single one. Like, your boyfriend is voting against your interest. You. This isn't quirky. He hates you. If he is willing to vote for someone who is actively trying to take away women's rights and so many more things, then he hates you. He does not see you as a person. The man he is voting for is a convicted felon who has assaulted multiple women. He doesn't love you, bro. You are not a human in his eyes. What? Get out, leave. You deserve someone who won't vote against your bodily autonomy. You deserve better than that. Thank you.
I have been seeing so many videos of people saying that when they go to vote this election, they are going to be canceling out their partner's vote. I could never. I have talked about this before, that politics are extremely important when you are actually compatible with someone else. If your morals and your values do not align, then what do you actually get along with? I was recently interviewed for an article from CNN where, swiping right ahead of the election, popular dating apps have new features to show off political views, where they asked me if that was important to me in dating, and it specifically is, where those are the first questions I ask right off the bat. If I know for a fact that someone is going to vote for someone like Trump, we will never get along. Some people think that that creates a deeper divide between people, specifically relationships, but in my ideal world, I would be very well aligned with the person that I am romantically and physically intimate with. Oftentimes, the older generation didn't talk about the important topics, and then that leads to so much generational trauma and divorce. We are all a product of that. If your parents are still together and compatible, that is the exception to the rule given the divorce rates. So I encourage you to definitely have political conversations and don't date anybody who doesn't believe in your right to your own body or your personal autonomy.
Hi, just a reminder that you cannot tell someone you love them and vote for somebody who is actively trying to take their rights away. You may be able to separate relationships from politics, but that is a luxury and a privilege that not everybody has. Your vote is an act of love and support or an act of violence.
Social media was on fire with people talking about this too, like, how am I supposed to hug my grandma after I know she voted the opposite way? There were memes, some humor to ease the tension, but also a lot of genuine stress. Relationships got tested big time, some folks saying they could feel that silent judgment from across the dinner table, others openly debating whether they'd survive the next family gathering without it getting awkward. And the group chats? Straight battlegrounds. You had people muting chats to avoid a political feud with their cousins and siblings, people blocking each other just for a week, and some folks just mentally preparing for the day they'd actually have to talk about it. In 2024, voting wasn't just about red or blue, it was about whether your relationships could stand the heat.
I'm just curious, ladies, that when you and your partner finally realize that you're supporting two different candidates for this upcoming election and he's supporting this guy, I'm just trying to figure out, how are y'all sleeping next to each other, sitting across the kitchen table together, planning your future together, knowing that this guy and his cronies are perpetuating an environment that is not only making you, me, hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of Americans unsafe, but also that the partner that you are planning your life with, your future with, does not have your best interests at heart. Like, how is that shaking out for the family reunions? I can't even be friends with, let alone be in a relationship with, be partnered with, build a future with, lay next to, procreate with someone who is voting against my best interests, who is actively voting for someone who has been blatantly clear that that person does not care about my safety, my future, my rights, my bodily autonomy, and the person that I am sharing my body with, planning a future with, is supporting that candidate. At some point, y'all need to realize that that person does not love you. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there is no way that that person loves you.
If I see one more trend video about like on my way to the polls to cancel my husband's vote, like I am confused. If you differ so vastly in your morals and what you consider important for the next leader of the free world, like how are you married? What do you talk about at night? Like, we're not talking about like monthly budgets or how we like to meal plan. Like these are pretty, baseline things that I feel like married couples should agree on. So like, unless you're in an arranged marriage, I don't understand this trend at all. I have a lot of questions. A lot.
The way that young men in this country got it into their heads that voting for Trump and voting against the rights of women would make them tough guys, so bonkers to me. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I know a lot of you are going to say 52% of white women voted for Trump too, and 52% of white women should cross to the other side of the fucking street if they see me coming. I will deal with them in my own way. But right now, I want to speak to the young men. And I just want to ask, do you think that the Punisher would be okay with the government trying to control his wife's body? Seriously, this is a thought experiment. Do you think Frank Castle, the Punisher, the super tough badass you all pretend to be in your fantasies, do you think he would just sit back and take it when the government tried to control his wife's body? Or another one of your heroes, do you think Thomas Shelby would be okay with men in power forcing the woman he loves into a life-threatening medical procedure that she doesn't want? Do you think that John Wick would be okay watching his wife bleed out from a miscarriage in a fucking parking lot because she can't get a termination of pregnancy procedure to save her life? Because I don't think they would. I think they would tell the government to stay the fuck away from the women they love, and if the government didn't listen, I think they would say, okay, well now I have a machine gun. Because that's what actual strong men do. Rolling over and just taking it like a dog when other men try to come after the women you love, that's weak. It's the weakest thing I can think of. And the fact that you all care more about looking tough in front of other men than caring about the actual women you love and protecting them, it is so weak.
So you canceled your husband's vote because you are in favor of women's bodily autonomy and rights. But yet you lay next to someone who doesn't support your bodily autonomy and rights.
Canceling your husband's vote. I love it. I love it. So good. Have you tried canceling the husband himself? Do it.
I see people saying they're canceling out a spouse's vote. I would have divorced my husband if he voted for Trump. When I was dating and people would say apolitical or Republican, no. Apolitical comes with a certain level of privilege and ignorance and apathy. No thanks.